I'm not aware of any, but, okay, no new members. Treasurer's report? Already? We jump in, Rick.
Speak up, I can't hear you. You left your coffee up
You
here.
left your coffee here.
Thank you. All right, we got the coffee
We didn't
situation
rehearse
figured
this.
out. So right now, currently, I just got receipts from the computer upgrades that I need to write him a check. I was $70. But right now, the account has $5,025 on it.
Good,
So
thank you. Priority business and announcements. Open shop is Saturday, May 10th from 9 to 12. I think typically Tom Wenzel sends out a reminder to people. I will try to do that, but if I don't, just remember this coming Saturday, 9 to 12.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks to John DiBenedetto, Peter Caddick, and Bill Heaps for their continued attention to our computers. John had to do something inside the desktop that he had already rebuilt. I forget, some kind of a video drive or something, chip. And that's done, and Bill updated the computer with Windows, and that's all working beautifully. So thank you. And also thanks to Jim Barr, who's been working furiously. As you all notice, there's walls with the tools in for the lathes that don't have drawers. He's done this one, and he has foam that he will be putting in the drawers so that each tool has a home, and it will be evident if a tool isn't home. There's a sheet over there that tells lathe by lathe and also Central Supply what tools we have. And if somebody borrows a tool from one lathe because they may need a different set of jaws or something, just please return it to the lathe that you took it from when you're done at open shop. We did talk briefly last meeting, I think, about the Powermatic is actually Rick Baker's property. And he's he's the president of the Mid-Atlantic Symposium Group, and he has requested that we return it to him. Doug is our liaison with that group. So we're going to be coordinating with Ben and any other volunteers. Mike has volunteered also to get this to Downingtown to Rick. And so at some point, we should replace this in some fashion. We have a member who has volunteered to extend an interest-free loan for a new lathe up to 3 years or so. We can pay it off monthly, pay it off in 3 chunks if we'd like, or it's not urgent. We can bring the Nova up here in the meantime, but we can keep our eyes open for a used lathe. But I will say, Barry also has already pursued a used Powermatic, and when he called up, that was already gone. I was online today looking at Harrisburg and Central Jersey. There are no decent lathes on Craigslist. There may be other sources, so if people have ideas, I'm open to them. We should be open to them. We're not going to vote tonight, but I think next meeting, we should probably take a show of hands of all the members of what your thoughts are. Should we buy a new lathe, or should we bide our time and see if we can find one that somebody is selling, either somebody that we know or Craigslist? Mike?
The last 2 times I was down in Philly at the Museum of Wood, and they have a robot sitting in the bathroom. Is that something they would sell?
Probably for in-house demonstration.
You think? Okay.
Yeah.
It's a nice, hey, it's in the
Cutting
bathroom.
toilet paper.
Make your own toilet paper.
Make your own toilet paper. They just use it for the spindle.
How much is on the board?
Yeah.
So that's an idea. We did, I'll leave this here in case people want to look at it. Put together, I guess, spec sheets, if you want to call it, on 5 different lathes: Powermatic 3520C, a Jet 1840 EVS, a Jet 1640 EVS, a Harvey T60S, it's a big lathe, and a Laguna 2436. Amazon sells the Powermatic about $7,000 lower than Woodcraft. I have not,
700.
700, not 700. Because they'll pay us to take it. They'll pay us to take it. They'll take, well, in that case, we'll go for the more expensive one. We'll make money on the deal. $700.
You need a tow truck to get it?
Yeah, Amazon will deliver it. Woodcraft, if we picked it up, so I didn't include shipping for either of them, is about $700 more. I did not yet go to Blue Ball Machine, which I was going to do, and also they also sell Jet. So I was going to compare the Jet 1840 with the Powermatic 3520. They're significantly different machines. The Powermatic is significantly heavier than the Jet. Barry has a Jet and seems to like it, but I think people are familiar with the Powermatic, and anyhow.
Hey, John.
Yes?
This is John Chalikian. You might look at the Grizzlies also. I have a Grizzly, and some other folks, I think, have one. And it's a nice machine. You can check that out.
Okay. We also were looking at a Harvey T60. The trouble with a Harvey, frankly, is first of all, it's got a 1-year warranty. Second of all, I don't know if tariffs are going to affect its price, but it's $5,300. It's about the same price as a Powermatic 3520. And then I looked at a Laguna 2436, and again, just for pricing purposes, Woodcraft sells that for $4,600. So that's between the Jet 1840 and the Powermatic 3520. So next month, I think we'll take a poll of, A, should we be looking for a new lathe or for a used lathe? And second of all, what model, what brand do people prefer?
Hey, John,
Yes?
there are a good many lathes on eBay, by the way. And the second question I have, because I'm a Nova guy, have you looked at the Nova? There's a lot of good lathes available, and they are not as pricey as some of the ones you've been talking about.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jim. If we bought a used one, it wouldn't really matter, I guess. I hear that Technitool has filed for bankruptcy. I don't know what that means.
That's bullshit.
what's that?
That's internet bullshit. So
Is it really?
that's what I'm hearing.
Okay.
From the internet? Everything is true on the internet.
I thought everything was true on the internet, Jim.
Oh, maybe I'm on the wrong internet.
You're on the dark side.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, no, that was online. I'm on part of the group, the
Yeah.
technical group, and somebody was reporting that, and they said no. So I don't know. I didn't dig deep because I'm happy with what I got, and they've always been good for me. So
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that parts aren't going to be available. So I don't know. Mike.
If you're looking at new, maybe reach out to manufacturers and they'll cut the club a deal.
Okay.
That's a possibility.
Including one way, maybe.
Probably not one way.
Probably not one way.
I know Robust took care of Keystone when we bought a lathe.
Okay. The only challenge I see with those lathes, if we get a big one, this is difficult enough to move. Moving those lathes is even trickier if we got.
But you're only moving them once.
Well, I'm saying if we work with a symposium to move them on a yearly basis.
So they're taking our lathe
taking
away.
your lathe.
The
Why would
symposium,
you
why are we
now-
giving our
Hang on a
lathe
second, guys. Let me back up. The symposium
Sorry, that's
doesn't
not-
want our lathe after they've taken theirs back. Okay,
So-
so they
so
only
it's
want
not-
4. So this lathe will be our lathe, and the symposium is not expecting at this point in time to take it back. I know they're going to order if anything, this year they're going to be borrowing Angelo's one way if they do anything. But then if we get a lathe, and it's like anything else, if we want to lend it to us, I mean, the fact of the matter is, if the symposium wants to borrow a lathe, it's far easier to borrow either mine or Ron Sheehan's or one of the other ones that are around that people have that are much closer to the ground. They're the same size. Mine's one of these Powermatics, and considering their reputation, I wouldn't send after what's been happened to Ron's lathe, I wouldn't necessarily lend the Symposium one anyway. So
So you're saying this will just, whatever we get will stay here?
whatever we get will stay here as far as I'm concerned.
That's good news.
If you're considering a Laguna or a Nova, why would you not just pull one of the Lagunas or Novas that's sitting back here up to the front?
Well, we will in the interim, until we get a heavier lathe. That's all.
Again, back to, just for those of you who weren't here last month, one of the things that John has sort of skipped over, it was not that those lathes back there don't work. It was the fact that having a heavy lathe for some projects and for some demonstrations is excellent. You can go lighter on a heavy lathe, but you can't go heavy on a lighter lathe. And so it was just to give the breadth of capability for the club. And if somebody wants to come into the clubhouse and use the heavier lathe for one project, it's fair enough. So if you want to do stuff like the guys at the back who insist on doing these little fine carvings and everything like that and have a small lathe, that's fine. But it was mostly to just give us a larger
It just gave us more opportunities
flexibility.
to different kind of demonstrations and someone turning something larger. The Nova, I guess, is the second largest lathe here. That's only 430 pounds. And I will tell you, I'm pretty sure that demo that Doug did on the end of the lathe with your 4-foot plywood piece, I don't think the Nova could have taken that, that's all.
And neither can most lathes. Yeah, that's okay. You can say something if you want.
Mike just said, well, he's already done that demo, so we don't have to worry about it.
Well, can I just point out to Mike that I've already done this demo as well, but it was 8 years ago, and there's a whole lot of people here.
Captain Snarky is not going to stop.
Yeah.
I want to add a affirmation to John Chilligan's idea. I think we ought to look really closely. You won't worry about that company being out of business very soon. Grizzly seems to really be going strong. And the guy who I bought my Nova from bought a Grizzly to replace it, and he said he's quite happy with it. So
That's good to know. Thank you.
Two things. The Grizzly is around, I think it's the same when you're talking about the, I believe it's considered 18-inch, but it might be a 22-inch. But it's electronic variable speed, and I think it's 4,100 right now,
Okay.
plus delivery
Right.
cost. And for what it's worth, I do own the Jet 1840 EVS. It's 460 pounds, and I just built an oak tray or tabs on it, just like here. There's tabs on the legs, and I got about 250 pounds of the Purple Heart that I had laying around, and so it brings the weight up to it's as heavy as the Powermatic, except for when I have to move it. It goes back to 460 pounds.
Okay.
That's still.
it looks, and John, it looks like, I don't know what price range you think it is, but on eBay, Acme Tools is selling that 1840 for $3,400.
I'm also assuming that we'll be able to get them to lift up whatever just like they were lifting this one up and down, correct?
Yeah.
So we're not talking, pounds are not a problem. Weight of the machine is not a problem, unless the floor has a load-bearing limit.
Well, I mean, this is pretty heavy
600.
lathe. So so if we replace it more or less in kind, there shouldn't be an issue.
The only issue would be the one with the one-way, which is a nice big lathe. The problem is getting the one-way. It's such a long piece, and it's a single. The whole base is one piece, so getting the longer bed, the bed length makes it coming through this door very hard.
Yeah, pretty much the bed length on this one is about the length that we can manage on the landing out here.
Sound like you need a bigger landing.
Well,
You can talk to
Ben
Ben Kaufman about that if you want to.
So we'll get into this more, but obviously there's a lot of thoughts about this, which is good, and we'll take this up in greater detail next month. Angelo?
So when you're talking about a one-way lathe, are you talking about a 2436? Or are you talking about something other than that?
Something comparable to this, I think the 2436 is probably
That's
comparable.
their standard.
2436 is,
850 pounds. I have one.
yeah.
They're heavy.
Yeah,
I
so
got
it's
it
not
down in my
comparable.
basement, and I've determined whoever buys my house is going to have to be a wood turner. Because I don't think we're getting it out.
No, they're beasts.
Yeah, they're heavy.
Because looking at their inventory, they've got different kinds of lathes. The sit-down lathe is a 1640, that kind of thing, that are lower in price and lighter in weight.
Okay. Well, we'll look into it some more and have a summary of this information ahead of the meeting. But I'm certainly open to people sharing ideas between now and then. Okay. So Doug is going to do a redo from 8 years ago of sanding. He's got some new toys here that's going to show us sanding up close and personal. And if you have time, you're also going to talk about sharpening a little bit, right?
Yeah, well, I've got, for those of you who want, I've got the same toy.
Oh, the same toy.
I tried, I can start off my presentation here, sanding. Just as an aside, I got this little microscope off the internet because a friend of mine had them for work, and it's a 30, it goes between 50x and 1000x. It goes those two ranges. For $35, it attaches into your cell phone, and you can go look at any surface you want. So I've been using it for looking at, in my job, I look at features, surface features from aluminum and stuff like scratches and stuff like that. And I thought, well, why not use it for looking at sanding scratches? And I did a presentation before COVID came in here at the club. And I thought, well, I've updated it a little bit, and I wanted to just try and go on from there. So that's, I don't know how much I'm going to use this today, but afterwards or during the break, I can show you people. And that the other part was that it also, you can really focus in on the end of a chisel and really start taking a look at the at 1000x. You can start seeing the burrs. So what you think may be sharp, you can physically see it ain't, you know. And so this is, to me, it's not something I'm going to use every time I sharpen something or I sand something. It's mostly just an education device for myself. So maybe we could go after the presentation with sanding here. So what I like, one of the things that frustrated the heck out of me when I started in wood turning is I go to these demonstrations, everybody goes, and everybody's sharpening, you got a beautiful bowl, and then you sand it and they walk away. Oh, and then you sand it and you walk away. And I like to think of sanding as like in golf with those golfers. They say, drive for dough, putt, or drive for show, putt for dough. And to me, not mentioning sanding ever is sort of like saying, well, as long as you get the ball on the green, you can putt it. You know, it's not going to be a problem. And yet, so much of our work is shown up by the sanding that we do, the last little bit finishing step. And everybody says, so we all struggle around and say, what can you do? Well, so, and what was the biggest frustration? I'd be sanding away. I get down to, you know, and I think everything looks great. And then at 400 grit, all of a sudden the line would show up and you have to go right back to the beginning. And start over, you do it again, and the line would show up at 400 grit again, and it would be in a different location, a different line. And then, so it was a constant source of frustration and fighting. So how the heck do you start with the problem? Let me start off a little bit just by going over what grit size actually means in sandpaper. This is 80. This is showing a table here of the various, what the heck's going on? Anyway, this is just the inch size of the various grits of sandpaper. So at 80 grit, this shows that the actual grit size is about 7.5 thou, down to 600 grit, which is about 1.5 thou. And every time you sand something, if I'm going from 80 to 100 grit, I have to get at least, this chart would show me that at least I have to sand down at least 1.5 thousandths off the surface just to get down to the same grit level, so it's all down through. And the next time through, I'm going to have to do another 1.5 thou. So every time I need to get under that surface. And so I decided, well, let's do a little bit of experiment here. How well does this work? I got a little thing of various grit sandpapers, and then tied them all together in a, so what the heck doesn't my pointer show up in this thing?
Is there a switch on the bottom of it?
Pardon?
On-off switch?
Yes.
No, it's working.
It's working.
Huh.
Doesn't matter. Oh, there it goes now. If I do it in my slideshow, if I go to the slideshow and it does that for some reason, and I say this, and I presenter, no, and then that comes off, the arrow comes off.
Do you have a little scroll on that mouse?
Yeah.
The scroll up or down will move it forward or back.
Yeah, no, I was just, this is the, I'm looking for the arrow side to side here. You can see it now. You see, what I did is I took different grits of sandpaper, 150, 220, 320, 400, and 600, and I cross polished a piece of wood so that what I could do is hold down that sandpaper, all 5 grits at the same time, same pressure for the same length of time, and see what happened. And the purpose of that was just say, okay, because every time we do something, we do it slightly different. Okay, this way I've got them exactly the same length of time and pressure. Now, many of you may realize that when you're sanding paper, when sanding, we talk about speed and grit. The thing that happens with sandpaper, it's a tool, but the higher the speed that you turn your piece, the more air gets entrapped between the sandpaper and the wood. And no matter how hard you press, that air is pulled in by the roughness of the sandpaper itself. So the air is actually being pulled in by the process. And so if you go high speed, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're sanding any faster. All you may be doing is just pulling more air into your system. So again, it's one of those things you have to be cautious. So when you're sanding and you're setting up sandpaper, you need to make sure that the speed is down low enough that you're actually cutting. I use my sandpaper typically 400 RPM at the tops, when I'm doing it, and that really cuts well and does everything. Going faster, if you want to sand faster, use a coarser grit. If you want to sand slower, use a finer grit, but don't, yeah.
So you say 400, is that with a power sander or?
No, just a regular straight sander. The speed on my lathe is at 400 RPM.
Okay.
So what I did with this thing here is I put that on, and now the next graph here, the next picture here is what happened. So this is, the first picture here is the circular grit of the 80 inches is crossing. And you can see that after 1 minute, the 150 grit paper, you can't see any of these lines on the 150 grit paper. If you take a look at the 220 grit paper, you can actually see the vertical lines, but you can also see some horizontal lines that haven't been taken out. The 320 grit paper, what's happening is actually the 320 grit paper is actually polishing the background, but the grit lines here that are coming are just getting stronger and stronger to see. So at 400 grit, you see all these lines coming across, and nothing's going out of the background. So what this is just really showing is exactly what we experience. Unless you get rid of this really coarse grit beginning with, it won't disappear. So how do you get rid of that scratch pattern? One of the things about sanding that we don't often talk about is when we're sanding on a bowl or whatever, typically the piece is rotating this way, and if you put your hand against it, the grit lines are going in the same direction as that large arrow. Okay? If I'm doing a spindle, the grit lines are going in the same direction as the large arrow. When I change sandpaper grits, how can I tell if I'm down below the previous grit sandpaper? This is a little bit of a hint, but the reason I use power sanding is when if I look at this as a little 3-inch disc here on the side here, now the grit lines, if I'm either touching the top or the bottom of that disc on my sander, now the grit lines are going across the grit of the straight sandpaper. So now, and again, on a spindle as well, you see the grit is actually going across that sandpaper. You'll notice I'm touching the top and the bottom, not the side. If I touch the side of that disc, it's going to give you the same thing as if you didn't have anything there at all. The speed of the sandpaper, the direction of the sandpaper is less important, of the disc is less important than making sure you're touching it so that it's going across your previous grit. So now, if I do that, what happens is this is what happened. I've got a picture over here of the power sanding I've done on the disc. What I started off with is a 80 grit, and you can actually, or this is, you can see the slight diagonal lines going through here on the 120 power disc. If I go to the next disc of 150 grit, the vertical lines are there, and all these 45-degree lines have disappeared. I don't have to sand anything further. And to be honest, to go between those, to get rid of these 120 grit disc sands on that one, took about 30 seconds, maybe 50, maybe a minute. If I go back, the next one is 180 grit, and again, this is going maybe for some people might like a 150. What I choose is the 220, 150 are the grits you get in the standard store, and I pick up the discs at the intermediate grits so I can make it easily. But again, you can see here, now I've gone back to the disc grinder. You can see the lines have once again shown up, and now all the vertical lines are gone. You're done. As soon as you do the vertical lines, you can't see it, you're done. You can start over, start the next one. Go down to the next one, the horizontal. Yeah, go ahead.
So are you switching between power sanding and hand sanding?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I'm doing, going back and forth, because that way, the purpose of this switching back and forth is not to sand better, but to be able to see when you've gotten through the full grit.
Gotcha.
And if I'm taking a piece like this, like we can look at this a little bit later if you want to. I plan to do, but you can actually see some spots sometimes where you need to maybe sand a little bit longer just because of whatever. But it's very, very fast to see that, and then you can. And the other part is it's very easy to see the circular structure versus the straight structure. And that's how, for me, I get through my sanding. So going that, and again, the next one, 320, 400 grit. You can see, if I just go back here, this is a 220, 400. If anything, what's happened is these lines are a bit narrower. They're not necessarily, they don't look deeper on my microscope, but they're just narrowed down, so they're getting finer and finer as you go along. And you can see that again, you can distinguish between the structure, the line structure here and the horizontal structure there, going back and forth. And that's just so that you can visually see it, okay? I can go back. When I'm starting to sand something along this line, I can show you a video. We can maybe show you a video if this doesn't work out so well. But John Kelsey and I did a video before COVID about this sanding of green things, and I brought it on with an automatic connection here. But if I hold this light here on the right angle and turn it, you can see where it's gone from the circular pictures to the horizontal picture, horizontal versus circular sanding grid. And that, to me, is all I need to talk about with sanding. Well, again, if you want to talk, I talk about grits. We can talk about sandpaper. You can talk about all these things. This sandpaper works better than that sandpaper. But that's not where my frustration is. My frustration is having lines left over when I'm getting down to the last grit. If you want to take a half a grit, whatever, I don't care how fast a jump you take. If you take a jump from 150 to 220 or 150 to 180 to 220, the point isn't going from 150 to 220. The point is that you've got to go from that circular motion to the circular motion in a different way so that your grit lines go different, and that way you can physically see. Now, I'm just as a backup for the reason I come up with this, or I didn't come up with this. This is not my new idea. As a metallurgical engineer, my first lab in university was polishing samples, and we had to get metal samples to mirror finish. and when you're sitting there and you sit there on the sander and you go back and forth, but the first thing you did on every time you change a sandpaper grit on the metal, you turned your sample 90 degrees and did that. And that was, again, the 90 degrees was simply so you could see the difference. So backing on to larger bowls, I know there's some areas where you can't do that. If I have a lip underneath the sandpaper and I'm circular, there's some places where the disc sander just simply can't get. And to me, that's another one of those questions I still struggle with. I will, and on some unusual surfaces, I still struggle with getting rid of those grit marks around the edge. So don't kid yourself into saying this is the greatest thing, but I do know that it goes a lot faster. So what I was going to do, I thought in the way of demonstration, if people would bear with me tonight, is
Doug,
yeah, go ahead.
I have a question for you. You used to advocate reversing the lathe direction every grit you moved up, or did I misunderstand you?
I've had people have advocated, Jim, and if I can go back to my presentation here. If you take a look at this presentation here with the disc going, I pointed 2 spots that you can use that disc, the top and the bottom here. And if you take a look and think about the way the direction of the sandpaper is actually going, if you just touch one half of that disc, at the top, it's going around that way. At the bottom, the sandpaper is actually going the opposite direction with respect to the spinning of the wood. So if you want to go to the opposite direction, you don't need to, with a disc sander, you don't need to change the direction of your tool. All you have to do is go lean it downwards, and suddenly you're going the opposite direction as far as the tool is concerned. So Jim, I agree with you. I used to advocate that, and I don't know that I have actually seen that it makes that big a difference.
Well, you make sense, by the way. That illustration is a perfect illustration. You made sense in that you're getting that by tilting the other edge of your revolving. Now that's power sanding, right?
Yes. Now, yeah. But again, if I power sanded, if you can imagine of taking this power sanding one, if I take that and now now the circular is all there. Now it doesn't really matter which direction I'm going on this next sanding paper, because it's going to create large circles, either right around the circumference of the piece or large circles. So you'll see once you're through the power circle. So it's power sanding. So I don't really focus on whether your bowl is going one direction or the other. In fact, I do focus on it, because if my bowl isn't going the right direction, it spins off my lathe and I get it all over the floor, and then my sanding goes all to hell and I have to start over again. But yeah, go ahead, Barry.
Doug, can you speak about, when you have a bowl here, so
yeah.
Like every 90 degrees,
yeah.
to break it down just to
yeah.
90 degrees, you're changing from essentially, whether power sanding or hand sanding, you're going more or less with the grain versus more or less cross grain.
Yeah.
And I have found I can only get the cross grain down to a really good finish if I don't turn. Just 0 RPM or take it off the lathe and sand it by hand. Like you were saying about getting air or whatever, no matter what RPM I use, eventually I no longer have a true surface. I have where it is dipped down on with the grain and sticking up on the cross grain. And the longer you do it, the more it amplifies that. And so I do best by taking it off the lathe and putting it and sanding intentionally with the grain at all places.
To your point, that's one of the things that power sanding really helps with. If I am having a problem with that, I'm particularly paying close attention to it on when I'm doing the power sanding, and I will stop, lock the lathe, and if I'm having one spot that's giving me a process, I can sand that one spot quickly with the power sander.
Right.
And then literally start the lathe up again, continue the power sanding, so now I get a uniform power sanding surface. But the other part, Barry, is if I start, and this is another frustration, if you start sanding too much and go back and forth, then it starts to dip down because the hardness changes all the way around. So keeping your sanding time down to the minimum if you can is the other thing I'm trying to do to exactly avoid that question. And a second thing, and this is back to what Jim was referring to as far as reversing the direction. If I'm reversing the direction, the sandpaper is bouncing on a different way. In other words, if I have a gap or doing a whatever bowl, or I have a soft spot, you start to feel the wrap just because the softness goes in and the way your hand follows into the system, into the surface. And so by changing the direction, you don't necessarily get rid of that completely, but you at least start sanding it so that the gulf you're making isn't as pronounced. Yeah, Angela.
Typically, what grit do you sand your bowls to?
I typically go to 600,
600.
400 to 600.
And your spindles?
Similar type of thing.
Same.
I find that if I do a 600, if I do a 400 grit and a Beal polish, I can't see anything on the grit size afterwards. I mean,
So
visually.
does the Beal polishing system take any scratches away that may have been on the surface?
It'll only take away the scratches that are there from the 600 grit.
Oh.
You know, I have found that if you take, that you can do high-speed sanding on a small disc, and it seems to take it away. But I've never done a full, you know, going from 100 to 600 grit, for example. I tried it on this lathe. I was doing some more experimentation to see if that happens, and I couldn't pick up any grit sizes. The problem is it took such a long time. So you can, maybe the best way to say this, you can get down to polishing with, if you start off with 600 grit, you can get down to the surface without any other grits between. It just takes a whole lot more sandpaper and a whole lot more time. So to me, it's a matter of, and also generates more heat and all that sort of stuff. So to me, it's mostly the efficiency of making, the steps are there to make it so it goes with the a minimum amount of energy and the minimum number of pieces of sandpaper. I would be able to get this one down well, why don't we try it?
Hey, I have one more question, Doug.
Sure.
Whatever happened to the idea of using those inertia sanders or whatever you call them? They're not powered. I wonder if sometimes we aren't creating our own
These things?
problems by using a power sander, which is really aggressive. I don't know. I've never experimented with it, but I'm tempted to go out and try it now since we're talking about it. Well, because the process of that sanding has to be different.
Well, this is the one you're talking about here, right?
That's exactly right.
So I've looked at this, and the problem I have with this inertia sander is can you focus in on it? I don't know if you can see on this one here. In order for this to turn, you actually have to be in top contact with the surface, so it's actually going in the same direction as the sanding thing. So, and what I want to happen on this piece of here, I don't want to be sanding on the top because that's going with the wood. I want to be sanding across the wood grain here, and this inertia thing does not get it. Can I show you here? The inertia will only twist if I'm touching like at the top, like I said before, or the bottom. But at this point in the sanding section, I want to be touching the sides.
And you find that it doesn't turn?
No, it just stops turning.
Sides?
It just stops when I'm trying to go across the grain of the bowl. It just stops turning.
It will. Can you demonstrate that?
Yes.
Your hair is awesome.
Your hair is great.
Sorry. So if I see how that's going? Can you see that?
No, because the camera's not on. But it will be soon. It's down to it.
Here. It's turning,
Come
right?
towards-
There you go.
It's turning? As soon as I go up to the top, it's now not moving at all. It's not turning at all. So it only turns when you're on the same side, which is, to me, it's like the same thing. You know, if I'm going in the middle and all the way around, yeah, it does sometimes, but it's simply inconsistent.
So
This is where it goes.
does that inertia sander help you or hinder you in your process?
As far as I'm concerned, it hinders me. I
So
find
you prefer a power sander?
funny you should ask that. I did bring one of these along, and the reason
Two-stage dust collector.
I have several. So if I'm taking my power sander now,
Okay, so that's faster then.
yeah, the power sander, I have a slow power sander, I've got a fast power sander. This is faster than I would, you know, this one here goes a bit slower than the other one. And the reason this is just a handy one to hold. But
And what is the handy one to hold? Is that,
it's got a 45-degree angle on it.
yeah, okay.
So it's a little bit, you know, this
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
And I use, this is the other part that I use my sanding for. If you take a look at what I've done here, I'm not sure if you can see it or not. But the other problem I have as a novice turner, everybody says I'm a experienced turner. The difference between a novice and an experienced turner is those with experience know how to cover up their mistakes more easily.
You don't need to sand.
Or correct them.
Not right.
But if I take,
I just admit mine.
well,
A professional turner is a guy that knows how to fix the problems, not cover up mistakes.
fair enough.
Thomas?
In that case, I know how to fix
Professional
it.
turner is the guy who knows how to hire someone for $4 an hour to do all the sanding for him. But what we have not addressed, Doug, that I want you to speak about is, because you were talking about it with your little magnifying glass.
Yeah.
Tool sharpness and technique as a way to eliminate a lot of sanding. Not all sanding, but a lot of the sanding. Because most of what
That's right.
we find frustrating is when we're putting large tool marks or large waves.
Yes.
Because we've been pressing too hard and we bruised the wood,
Yes.
etc. And those will never come out. You can sand till the cows come home. Even with a hard block, they won't come out. So I just think it's really important that people understand the impact of their actions before they ever get to sanding as a way of reducing their time spent sanding.
Okay, now you got me asking the second part of this question, because one of the let's see if I can get this working right.
Also, I just wanted to mention, I find that my lines go away a lot faster if I take off my glass. So if you're having trouble with scratch marks, my suggestion is take off your glass.
Either that or turn the lights down.
Yeah, turn the lights down low. That works too.
And by the way, if any of you guys have been down to the Guild of Craftsmen, Pennsylvania Guild of Craftsmen as turners, if they find, you're supposed to enter 5 pieces. If they find a scratch on any part of any one of those 5 pieces, you got to go back and start over again. So they're extremely critical about that whole process. So if you don't, just be warned ahead of time. So
Angela and I want to know what process you're talking about. Like certification or something?
Becoming a certified member of whatever
Becoming a master craftsman.
a master craftsman.
Okay.
No, not for going into the store. The store's a different thing.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to go into the store, all you have to do is have 3 people say that'll sell.
Yeah.
You know, but if you want to be one of their certified craftsmen or whatever, yeah.
Do you shear scrape before you sand at all?
Rarely.
Really? So the surface that you're sanding directly off the tool, whether it's a gouge
Yeah.
or a skew or
Well,
whatever.
And coming back to what you said, I agree with what you're saying, Thomas, about the cutting the tool and everything like that. And I can show on some of my stuff where the skew, if it's done right, has a finer finish than the 200 grit finish does. Okay,
Yep.
There's no question about that. The real question comes down is to whether you want to spend 6 years getting to your point where your skew is that way, or 5 minutes starting from 80 grit.
I think my point really is that when,
I'm giving you the hard.
yeah, but like, because I wouldn't bother to use a skew because I don't have 6 years left. My point is that people don't sharpen often enough, and they don't sharpen at the right time, right?
Absolutely.
They might sharpen between projects or between bowls if they're doing 3 bowls in a day, but they don't think to sharpen before their last pass,
Absolutely.
right? Which eliminates a lot of the need to go to 120 or 150 or, you know, 180.
Let me see if I can pull this up on. This is one of the pictures I tried to take. It's not really well focused, but this is a skew that you might think is sharp, but it ain't. And I've focused in on, but you can just see all the little lumpies in and out of that, and that's the skew, you know, after the time. And if you don't get rid of that, some people say, "Oh wow, your skew's really sharp." Well, I can't shave with it, and therefore it's not sharp. And I'm not saying that I want to shave with it, but this is the reason you're seeing that is because this lumpy surface is coming through. And if I take a look at the end, I was going to try, and let me see if I can do this or not. I can actually, using my little telescope here, I can actually focus in on the end of the skew, and you can actually see on the top of it, if you look carefully, my grandfather always said, well, right on the very edge, as you start seeing, if you can see the reflection of light on that edge, when you're looking at the end of the thing, it's not sharp.
Right. So when you can see the edge, there is no edge.
Exactly. It's rounded off. And that's what so back to your point, and the other part that I brought in, if I go around, hand this around, people will say, this is my fingernail gouge, I just brought it in. People will say, well, that's a pretty sharp tool. But what I want you to do, when I hand it around, you'll notice that when it was machined in the first place, there's a bunch of lines down this inside here.
In the flute?
In the flute, inside the flute, not the outside of the flute, the inside of the flute.
Right.
And as soon as you have those lines on the inside of the flute, that means that when you sharpen around the end, you got this hump on the outside of the flute. So no matter how much you sharpen on the other side, unless you polish the inside of the flute on this, it's not sharp. And that one, I know you can cut yourself on it, but if you're really looking to get a smooth cut and the least amount of cutting, and that's when you get down to that level, and I think the reason Thomas is bringing this up is because in order to get down to the thin pieces that he's dealing with, oftentimes you have to have a sharp tool. And I don't mean it has to be razor like a razor because that's the wrong angle, but it's still got to be sharp so that the tool is doing the cutting and you're not using any pressure. The other part is that for me personally, and back on to Thomas, what you're saying, when do you sharpen your tool? I find that as the tool gets duller and duller, I have to grip it harder and harder. So if I'm sitting there suddenly and saying, oh my God, I'm doing the death grip, I should have stopped 10 minutes ago and sharpened it. And the other part is that the meat. Pardon? Sorry? Sorry.
Doug, on that fingernail you're sending around.
Yeah.
So you've got the lines on the inside. How do you clean that up? How do you get rid of them?
Very sophisticated technique. You get a piece of sandpaper and a dowel that's the right diameter, and just start going up and down. I mean, the 600 grit silicon carbide sandpaper is used for metal or wood anyway, whatever you want. Yeah, go ahead, Barry.
I used to do that exact technique with carbon steel.
Yeah.
But with the high-speed steel, I could pretty much celebrate 2 birthdays while doing it. But like Alan Lacer, just to put a plug in, he sells a pretty coarse, I'd put it probably at 400 grit diamond slip.
Yep.
I guess it goes from a 16th inch radius to a 1/4 inch radius, like in a teardrop shaped cross section.
Something like that?
No, this is
It's always a different one?
This is solid
Looks like
stone.
a
you know, I can't
Oh, it's
think
a
how to
red- okay.
describe it.
More like a card shape.
Okay.
Card shape.
Oh, I understand the other ones, but yeah, you're talking about the diamond strip
You got a
ones.
small radius and a bigger radius, and it tapers linearly between those two.
Yeah.
They make them in stone also, but on high-speed steel, it just abrades forever.
Yeah.
The diamond speeds it up a lot.
Go ahead, Thomas.
So Michael has a thought which is true. A lot of, well, it's you. I'm surprised that it's true. You can use MDF with polishing compound, will do the same thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people actually use old grinder wheels with MDF on them to polish the inside of their gouges after they're done sharpening them, because it's automatic. You just touch the thing that's done. They also make CBN dowels now.
Yeah.
So you can buy a dowel that's made with CBN, just like your grinding wheel, that will fit in the flute of your gouges. So there's a bunch of ways, but I'm personally of the opinion that yes, a dowel and a piece of 600 grit sandpaper will do the same thing.
Thomas, do you know who sells those dowels?
Go ahead.
I think Woodturner's Wonder. I think Woodturner's Wonder sells them. I can't remember now. I don't know.
Before Alan Lacer came out with the diamond slipper, this is back in the early 2000s, he recommended exactly what Thomas said, was to put MDF, shape the MDF to suit your flute.
Yep.
And using green polishing compound, take out the lines, and then with stainless steel, have another wheel adjacent to it, which, by the way, gave Viol the idea to make a 3-step polishing thing, and use the stainless steel polishing compound to buff up what you've taken away.
They also make diamond compound to like 1/10 of a micron that like I use to polish my my hand chisels.
Yeah.
You could use that on some MDF. That'll get them nice and shiny and sharp for you.
I agree with that.
Well, and to the points that are being made about this sharpening business, I'm going to come back. There's all sorts of different paths to get to a sharp tool. Okay, you know, it's like the idea of there's all sorts of different ways to get to climb up a mountain range. There's different mountains, there's different ways to go, but the objective is to see the view from the top. I don't care what path you use, the objective is to make sure that that edge of your tool is clean and straight and has as few nicks as possible, and you cannot, you know, you can see it better with a microscope, but you know, any time you can see a reflection on there, anything you can do to improve that surface being straight on the top, the better it is. I thought I had not sure if I have a presentation on that. I had a presentation a while ago on sharpening too. See if we got it here yet.
So Doug, while you're digging, so why do we laugh at guys who rub their finger across a chisel and say it's sharp? our fingers are more tender than wood is, and if it cuts us, it's damn well going to cut the wood.
Let me paint it this way. I can show you on the picture here. The last thing you do when you test the sharpness of a tool is go that way, like you're running it along the length of it. If you want to get a nice clean slit, because if it's sharp enough, you won't feel it when it cuts you. The proper way of testing the sharpness is actually to drag your finger across your thumb if you're going to do anything like that at all. And one of my uncles said what you do to test the sharpness of a tool is literally make a cut in a piece of wood, and if you can see any V or not, that's how you tell. But if you insist on using your finger like I always do, then it's always move your finger across to minimize the opportunity, because if it's sharp enough, you'll cut yourself. And at least I've been told that anyway.
But to your point, cutting your finger doesn't mean that you cut it smoothly.
That's true.
Right? You're never going to sand down your finger, so you won't know that those micro lines are in your finger. It will cut you.
It will, absolutely.
Yeah, more easily than it would cut wood. But that's actually the point.
Yes,
when
exactly.
You're cutting the wood, it's going to leave those scratch marks in it if it's not smooth.
Precisely. I had an...
And Doug, while you're looking, I have another question for conversation. Sure. We talk about grits of sandpaper, but we don't talk about what brands are most effective at transporting that grit to our workspaces. I mean, you can buy, I swear, you can buy many, many different brands. And how do you know which is the best one doing the best work with that grit? And how do you know they actually have that grit on that paper?
I actually in preparation for tonight, I actually took about 5 different varieties or 6 different varieties of 220 grit paper and took pictures of it to see if I could actually see any difference. And it didn't show up very well, otherwise I'd have shown you. But the truth of the matter is, Jim, you're absolutely correct, that in choosing a grit, you know, not all silicon oxide or silicon carbide is identical. You know, if it's a silicon carbide, silicon oxide, aluminum oxide, no matter what it is, they're all different. They're all using different glues. The papers are different. One of the things that can cause you scratches if you're not careful, you can get 600 grit discs for your small center. And everybody says, wow, it's a 600 grit paper. I've done the best I can. The problem with this 600 grit disc is if the paper's too stiff, it will cause the edge of the sandpaper will cause a line in your thing. So you're actually making, in using the 600 grit paper, you're actually creating a defect feature with that line. So one of the things you'll see to solve that problem is you'll see the dog-edged paper where it's got this that gap. Well, the reason for that is to make sure that you don't get that line on the edge of your sanding.
So are you saying that all grits are not created equal?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And when people talk about Abernet versus the other ones, another one I tried to do is take a look at what a sandpaper looked like before and after using it. I've got some pictures on here as well. I could look at it, but literally, the Abernet sandpaper, I think the reason it lasts so long is just got lots of holes to take the sawdust in. Right. In truth, it's like, okay, well, fair enough. How much you want to, and my problem with that sometimes is that the Abernet fills up in 20 seconds, whereas the regular sandpaper fills up in 15 seconds. So it's the extra 5 seconds with the extra cost of the Abernet. It's again a cost benefit. I do know though that I had a friend who worked in Canada at 3M at actually a sandpaper making facility. And the way they make sandpaper is they have this great big piece of paper that they put glue on one side, and then they run it through, and that paper is statically charged, and it goes over a bed of grit. And then the grit, because of the static charge, the grit springs up and actually hits the sandpaper. And what that does is then makes the points all as long as possible. So, but, you know,
I've heard somebody said 80 grit paper that's worn out does not equal 120 grit.
That's true.
No, it equals 160.
Is that what it is?
Everybody knows that.
It's only when it's halfway worn out, though. If you go past the halfway worn out part, then it's like 220.
Well, then it's like 220. So all you have to do is buy 80 grit paper.
Here's an illustration of one of the things with sandpaper, okay? Grit is a wire mesh that is used to sort it with, okay? So what happens if my piece looks that shape? Well, one way it won't go through, the other way it'll go straight through. So if my mineral is breaking up into long circular pieces, I can get a really, what appears to be a fine grit, but it's got coarse grit all over the place in the middle of it. Whoa, you know. So again, that's one of the things. So if they're looking at, and the other thing that you can get is if they're trying to save money, they'll save it on glue and paper. You know, you'll see cheap paper. So I do focus. I prefer 3M only because I found that that's a very consistent product. But I have gone into some places where I've seen, oh, they say they got a good deal on 220 grit paper, and it's some sort of off-brand that lasts about 10 seconds. And it just doesn't, you know, it really goes nothing in a hurry. So.
Doug, you're talking about sanding to 600. At what point are you just burnishing the wood? You're not sanding anymore. You're just what I call polishing, or
I would say even at 600 that I'm still sanding it. And the reason I'm saying that is because I'm not using a lot of pressure. I'm not generating any heat. You do bring out another point though. Pushing harder generates heat. It doesn't necessarily generate a smoother surface. And you know, and heat does not do anything more than burnish the wood. It changes the structure of it. So again, going down on those coarse grits, not using too much pressure, is another thing that really helps to not burnish it.
If you're going over 400, and you're saying to 600, what are you doing to the cell of the wood for the accepting of stain? Are you closing it down?
Technically speaking, if I'm doing the sanding properly, it doesn't close the cells off. It just shows it differently. It just well, the fiber, it's like a hole in the fiber. As you go around with the fiber, it's like cutting a straw.
Okay.
And as long as you're not filling the straw in, it should accept the stain. I haven't had any problems with the stain on if it's sanded well. Has anybody had that issue with it? Yeah, very cool.
On flat work, I used to make furniture,
Yeah.
so I've been turning about 7 years now. But on flat work, if you go beyond about 220, depending on, you know, stain is made of pigment that is very fine, whereas on wood, normally with turning, you're going to embellish whatever with dyes,
Okay.
which don't really have a pigment size, and so it basically absorbs, it'll absorb into the non-cell.
All right.
It's just like dyeing fabric, or so, you know, it all gets coated. But I did try one time going, I think on cherry, just because I had it on hand, 400 grit, and I really didn't see a difference in, you know, right on the can it says don't go finer than 220 because
Okay.
won't absorb the stain. And it didn't seem to make it.
But that's like on your flat work.
Right, and on the lathe, I don't know if anybody here puts stain on lathe work versus dye?
Yeah.
Maybe I should start using dye.
It depends if you're doing the end grains.
Yeah, your stain is whether you're bowl oriented or spindle oriented. It has nothing to do with your sanding. Yeah.
That's a sample, is all.
It also depends on what you're trying to put in your black walnut, because it's all molecular size stuff.
I don't know if I'll do any good or not, but the stain doesn't come out either.
Try.
Good idea. Let's see.
Hey, Rick. We're going to try to take this camera and zoom in on his phone.
and see if, I'll have to just set it down somewhere.
You place the phone and I'll try to.
Okay. let me-
Trying to collect a photograph of it.
Doug, you could just do a screen grab of your microscope and then send it to Bill to broadcast.
I did that I did that, Jim, and you're right. They just wanted to see if I could do it this way. I was trying to illustrate some things around this thing, so. Can you actually see that?
Yeah, you can actually see it pretty good.
Yeah.
That's
It's a little
Bluetooth
off,
enabled?
but it's not bad.
It's pretty lumpy.
30 $30 worth of Bluetooth enabled microscope. That's pretty good.
It's a Wi-Fi enabled, but yeah.
Oh, it's Wi-Fi enabled.
Just leave it there, Rick. I think that's pretty good.
Where's the edge?
You don't have to go get it.
The edge of what?
So a little bit closer.
Well, aren't you looking at it? Weren't you going to look at an edge of a chisel there?
Oh, okay, sorry. You wanted
You're
to look?
just looking at the grain. We don't want to see
That was a
grain.
great. I know you don't want to see Jim. Just give me a half a minute here for crying out loud.
The only one crying out loud is you, Joe.
So, if you want to take a look at a chisel here.
Oh, wow.
See, now if I go around, I'm starting to see the chisel. If I get this correct, do it right.
Pretty nice edge
As I
Until you get to there.
until it's not.
see
Yeah, I see some blood on it. Yeah, I think it's sharp.
the,
Using a single point on that skew edge, right? Yeah,
do we have any wider skews here?
Hey Doug, do you own the tools that around them?
Hamlet's there.
Sorry, you're going to say?
For
Do you
magnification.
hone the edge after you grind it?
Do I what?
Hone the edge of the tool after you grind it?
Well, what I really wanted to show here, to actually the comment you make, Angelo, is if I do this
Try not to do
correctly.
it right in front of the
We're
thing.
making
because the camera's
aerospace
off.
plates.
Pardon?
Yeah, that's good.
Lights going on
If
your
you get
phone
too far
screen.
this way, the camera, you're
Yeah.
right in front of the camera. That's perfect. That's
So
good.
so you can see how you can see that surface right now, and you can see if I come around the end of it. I'm slowly coming around. Yeah, turn that off. See the white line on the end of it there? It now disappears as I come across the other side.
That's pretty neat.
Let's do this again.
There you can see the edge perfectly. There you go.
See?
Wow.
Now, let's take a look at the same edge after I do this. This is just a 25 micron diamond.
So when you grind, are you grinding on a wheel or a belt?
So you would have to go past 600 grit to get a smooth finish.
I grind on the edge of a CBD. I use a 320 grit CBD wheel.
20 grits, CBA?
320 grit CBD wheel, I think.
Oh, you're getting marijuana. But okay.
It's hemp oil.
Here you can see a little bit of the edge.
You can see that the edges. You see how the lines have disappeared?
Yeah.
And actually, you can see the static from the edge is actually got
I can see the hairs on the end of the
hairs on the
blade.
end of it.
But that's not.
What's that?
Yeah.
What was the question back there?
No question.
No question, we're just processing.
Okay.
So, do you say that the honed edge, honing improves the edge, or does nothing for the edge?
No, the hone actually by getting rid of this. Go back into this one here. Let's just go back over here. Sorry for guys in Zoom land.
Focus.
Focus. There it goes. Now you see what's happened is that those grooves from the grinder there have actually been have disappeared.
That's from the honing.
And that's just from the honing. So if I do that on both sides, it's obviously going to be I didn't do very much on both sides or pay much attention to it, but that was just a quick hone on that one.
So my question is, with the wood spinning at whatever speed it's spinning at, and you spent X amount of time sharpening the tool, how long does that edge last? Is it minutes or seconds? Or does it matter?
I think it lasts longer, to be honest.
To be honest.
Yeah,
Because I know when I'm turning wet bowls, if I turn 6 to 10 bowls without sharpening wet wood, I'll get a rough cut that I'm happy with. I'll throw the bowl aside. But when that wood dries, I can't do that anymore.
But then you're adding another variable in there. The wet wood's a whole lot softer than the dry wood is, Angelo, and there's a lot more grit and stuff in it. It just, so.
Well, I agree, and that's why I'm saying.
So the strength of the edge, I think, depends less on the honing and more on the angle of the skew.
Say that again.
The strength of your sharpness
edge,
depends more on the angle that you choose for your skew than it does on whether it's perfectly sharp or not. A perfectly sharp tool is, how's it going to get dull unless you hit something with it?
Like wood.
Well, but I mean, things comparing. I'm not sure when I talk about these two surfaces.
I'm not sure when I turn with a bowl gouge. If it's wet wood, I can turn almost as long as I care to. And using the gouges that I have, they have a very rough flute.
Yeah, sure.
And I don't bother polishing the flute. So that'll get me through the rough turning for however many bowls, maybe 5, maybe 10. I don't know. But once that wood dries, then I have to pay attention not only to the fineness of the edge, but I have to sharpen more often because the wood becomes harder when it's dry.
Yes.
So the question is, how much time? What's the trade-off between spending the time to put a fine edge on a tool and not?
Angela, I think again going back to flat work, like with a plane, a planed blade or a wood chisel for that matter. Looking at the same thing as with the skew, that when you hone it, your first time honing, you are still leaving a burr. You flip it over, and the burr gets thinner and thinner. And quite often, when you think your tool is dull, it is because the burr was not entirely removed and it has folded over. And so what's presenting itself to the wood is not the razor sharp edge. A Canadian wood turner I saw on a YouTube thing, I thought it was very clever. He did it with, he did actually, as his final hone was on hard Arkansas, which I know isn't terribly effective on high-speed steel, but it does reduce the burr. And then he takes a block of either MDF or wood and just drags the blade across it, and it takes off the final burrs.
It cleans off that wire edge.
It takes off the wire edge.
That's right.
And you can tell the difference before you do that. If you run it across the back of your fingernail, you can feel the, brrr. And you do that process to it, and you got a cut fingernail.
Okay, so I know that when you use, when I first bought my first set of bench chisels, I was told I needed to flatten the back and polish the bevel, and then put a secondary bevel on to get the best edge, and to remove the wire edge. Well, that took me 2 days. So when I take those chisels and I'm whacking them with a hammer and hollowing, cutting through some wood, I'm saying, well, why did I spend all the time doing that when I can go to the grinder, put an edge on it, and do the same thing?
I think the answer to your question is less that less whacking with a hammer. If you're hitting it hard enough or whatever, a dull tool will cut. What you find is that with the sharpness of the tool, it just takes less effort to me. And when my biggest effect is that when my tool is very, very sharp, then when I'm doing the whole dance thing, I'm getting a whole lot less, I'm a whole lot smoother in my cutting, as opposed to whether it cuts better or lasts longer. And the second part is that when I have that tool sharpened then for a gouge, all I have to do is do a couple of strokes on the inside and redo it.
Alan Lacey used to do the same thing. In other words, he wouldn't go to the grinder every time he needed an edge. He would take a slipstone and dress the edge, clean up the flute, and go back to turn.
What I did just now with the thing, if I do that with when I've got this down, if I do that with my chisel, this is fine. Don't have to go to the grinder. And the other reason for doing 320 grit is like everybody says, well, why? So because that's all. I mean, the edge is that small. You don't need to take that much metal off to get that edge back to sharp again. So
I get it.
I've heard the question asked in probably half a dozen professional demonstrations, like a symposium, about do you hone Alan Reesor most recently. He was at first talking all about skews, that's his specialty, but when he was showing with the gouge, and I forget, it may have even been me who asked him about, doesn't he hone? Because I've seen guys who will hone a regular gouge, and they swear by it. And he said, no, he doesn't hone gouges. He just uses like a 220 grit CDN wheel, and you go from the grinder to the wood. And I did hear only one response out of most of the people that were being asked the question say, yeah, they hone. That particular person also had, he had the hand wheel removed from the Powermatic in the demonstration.
Yep.
And he had what somebody else here was talking about, MDF that has had rouge put on it to the point where it's built up. And he would, like after about 3 minutes of turning,
yep,
just making sure you don't go the wrong direction on the hand wheel, and
yep,
hone it. But not hone it by cutting
no.
into it. You're honing, by going away from it. And he's just he's really polishing.
When I do that at home, I have a grizzly, like the equivalent of the
wet wheel.
And on one side and the other side it's got a leather wheel on the other side. If I put diamond polish on that leather wheel and put it on there, and once around, and my thing is sharp again if I really want to. It's the same sort of thing. It's just the difficulty is getting that the flute uniform as you run it. But anyway, I think it's I think we could continue this conversation. I wore this shirt just because I wanted to show you a present on the YouTube. I've got a YouTube presentation, and I'm wearing the same shirt I had. So, but John Kelsey did a video a number of years ago with me. It's about 15 minutes long. You pull it up on YouTube. You say if you put in Doug Reesor sanding, it'll show it up, and it still stands up, I think.
It's on John's channel, right?
On John's channel, yeah. So, anyway, thank you very much for your attention, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Doug.
All here again. All right.
Thank you.
All sit.
All sit.
So this month's challenge is wood and glass. Incorporate a glass element into your turned object. And I can see we have some folks that have done that. So whoever would like to be first up, please do.
You say the challenge was to have wood with glass?
Wood with glass.
All right, well, So, yeah, I started making wine glasses, making the stems for wine glasses for people. Because I knew, you know, I found out sometimes I'd make a bowl for somebody, I'd give it to them, and they're like, what am I supposed to do with it? Whereas a wine glass, they know what to do with it, you know.
Some people never learn.
Some people don't drink wine, but usually
M&Ms, they'll hold M&Ms.
It will.
yeah, that's true, but it's a little delicate for that. Usually I make pears, but in both of these cases, I only had enough wood for one of each, so these are for me, not to give to somebody else.
Put them on the base.
Okay.
Did you snap off the base of the glass stem and drill a hole in the wood?
I did. Originally, I bought some from Craft Supplies. They sell the blanks, but they, you know, it got a little expensive by the time because the wood, you know, you got to use dried wood. So I'm buying kiln dried blanks, and the cost of the glass. I found out I could buy a set of glasses and get a little diamond blade, little tiny hacksaw, and yeah, I'd cut it down. I only leave about an inch and a half, inch to inch and a half or so.
You turn a wooden cup and put the glass stem on it.
Excuse me?
You ever turn a wooden cup and put the glass stem on it? You have all these leftover glass stems.
I wondered what to do with all those glass stems. That's not a bad
I
idea.
know a place you could shove them. If you like.
Yeah.
For a place to shove them.
That was obvious to me. Should I leave these here?
They're beautiful. Well, no, you take them back so they don't get.
Yeah, they're kind of fun.
They're very nice looking.
But, yeah.
And what do you hold it? What do you hold the glass to the wood with? CA?
No, I
No.
use silicone RTD, room temperature vulcanization silicone. So it doesn't take forever to set.
Yeah, well, I basically did the same thing. These are the Craft Supply ones cut off, cut off, which I thought I'd try first. But yeah, I agree. I wouldn't, if I was doing a lot of them, I'd go to glass place and buy wine glasses
Like a
for,
set of maybe 6
Yeah.
pretty decent wine glasses for $20.
yeah. We can do better.
Yeah. Salvation Army.
Yeah, no, I was told don't use CA because that's for wood. It won't hold the glass well. I use epoxy and just different finishes on different parts.
What are the colors?
What
are the colors?
This is just pigment in with my polyurethane. They didn't want to put epoxy on it. I thought I'd try it. It doesn't blend the best, but it worked. I wasn't particularly worried about getting that super smooth because I kind of like the blotchy pattern on it more than having it perfect anyway. So
what are the woods?
That is spalted maple and I think that's walnut or cherry. Forget.
Like a cherry ring.
Yeah, I wanted a little different. I didn't want it to blend in.
Are the rings turned end grain like turning a ring on a goblet? You know.
The rings were turned off the pieces. Just when I first started turning down the end, I did the ring off, and then.
Okay, so the grain in the ring is going vertical as it's sitting there.
Yeah.
Let's get the ring over the glass.
That's the hard part.
Magic.
But yeah. It turned out okay.
Glass up first.
Are they dishwasher safe?
Yeah. I don't think I would.
Well, you don't turn the dishwasher on. You can store them in there.
Yeah. If it's wine safe, what's it matter? If you get good enough wine, doesn't matter if the glass is clean. The alcohol killing you.
Thank you. I see a couple more pieces over there. Barry?
I haven't finished the outside yet, but was it last month I demoed? Yeah. I started it and took all my pieces home and finished it up.
You might.
And this is
Barry, when you were president, we instituted a rule, I think, about
I'm sorry, my
using
hearing
Lazy
sucks.
Susan for your piece.
Who
I
wants to
remember
use
a
it in a
president,
lazy
it was like
Susan?
1 or 2 presidents ago, who always said you have to put your piece on the Lazy Susan. Do you recall that, President?
The one you made.
Put it on the Lazy Susan.
Behind you.
oh, the spray. Here. Oh,
So we can see it,
oh, I see.
not to spray it.
You can
Yeah, now
stand
stand
behind
in
it.
front of the television. That's
Have the bowl turned.
That's very nice, Barry.
So it's, the staves are cherry and the lattices are white oak. A bad choice, by the way, but I happen to have white oak and I had already had it ripped into, for another thing entirely, into 1/4-inch thick strips, and so they were just laying in a rack of strips.
How many more of these will you make?
No, that's it.
One-off edition.
No, I like the tedium of this. I don't turn that well, but I assemble very well.
That's beautiful.
Well, now that we got Barry up in front, yesterday I was asked to come over to see the progress that he's made on the Japanese turning lathe. As you know, we're building a Japanese style lathe.
Not a jet.
Not a jet, but a no-way lathe. And if you would show the photos, I'll let Barry speak to what he's done. There's let's show the stills first. This is the headstock.
Okay, this is a, I forget the province in Japan that starts with a Y.
Yamanaka.
Yamanaka. It's the Japanese artisans that, Enzo a couple of times has brought in end grain, I believe wet wood, and the artisans, I think they're actually using dry wood because they have about 10,000 of them stacked up, but they're making rice bowls, or they're too big for sake bowls. I'm not really sure what they are, but they will turn with all handmade tools, and it's all scraping. It's just amazing to watch the speed of the wood coming off it, and they have instantaneous forward and reverse.
So that's the headstock.
Yeah, this is.
Now this is what he's built over the last couple of months, in addition to making those bowls.
There's a 3/4 horsepower 1725 or 1750 RPM motor that, when we bought our house, there was a whole house fan. It was noisy when it ran, and you could hear the thing shaking the house. And so I tore it out of the house, and but I saved the motor, and it's quite an impressive motor. Probably about 40 pounds of motor. And the motor drives.
Guess I can't do that.
A pair of pulleys, which I'm now modifying into being one very wide pulley, because it takes two belts, one of which goes up to the headstock and causes the wheel up on top to turn in the normal
Clockwise.
counterclockwise, like a regular lathe, with the front edge going down. And the other one, with the 180 twist in the belt, is turning the opposite way. And these pulleys up on top that go in the headstock are on bearings, and so they're just turning freely. In between them is a spool which is fixed to the shaft. And so we don't have the part done yet, but off to this side here, there will be with the work table at the same height as this, a 2-foot by 2-foot work area where the artist will, the tool rest is basically like a 3-legged stool. There's a bar and a post and 2 legs, so it never has rock or anything, and it runs on an angle, so it's going to be a female demonstrating this thing at the symposium, why I'm saying she. But depending on where your tool is on the rest, you're going from below the midline to above the midline on the piece being turned, and they do a lot of being a scraper, they're going down quite low on the piece they're turning. You have to really see a video of them. There's several on YouTube that you can see. But there's this top panel here has an opening in it, and those two belts go up through the opening, and inside that tower there is a pair of pillow blocks with the shaft running between them, and the operator has a pair of pedals. And there's cables that will feed down inside this panel and then come out and go over to, they'll be hidden. They're under the work table, and they go down to these two pedals, like gas pedals in a car. And when you push the right pedal down, it causes the belt that is turning in the normal forward direction. There's a fork assembly that will push that belt from the free idling pulley over onto the drive pulley on the headstock. As long as you keep your foot on that pedal, you're over there, so you're turning in the forward direction. And they can get, by backing off entirely, there's a spring return in this fork system that pulls the belt back to not doing anything. Push the other pedal, and a fork brings it over onto, so it's turning in the reverse direction. And it's operating at about 1,000 RPM. So there's the pulley down here is one of these. It's a variable. The hub has threads on it, about 1.5 inch diameter threads. And the one shiv face on the pulley, you can unscrew it. As you unscrew it, the bevel gets wider, and so the belt sits lower. So you can control from 3 inches up to a 4-inch effective diameter. And so you can have it reduce the speed from 1725 through 2 reductions, pulley to pulley, and then bottom drive pulley to top drive pulley. You effectively bring it on down to about 950 or 1,000 RPM. I don't have a means of measuring the effective RPM, but just mathematically, you're about 1,000.
That sounds like a Reeves drive.
Yeah, well, a Reeves drive relies on 2 similar pulleys. One is opening and the other one is closing to change the ratios. That's exactly right. This down here is just to figure out the belt length required. I had an old tie-down strap, and I just fused it together with soldering iron. And I established the length, and I figured, well, I'll try and run it. And the thing ran great until I tried to move it from the freewheeling pulley over to the center. And turns out that this fork that controls motion has to be on the ascending part of the belt, not on the descending. So you're trying to, I'm trying to think of a parallel in bandsaw adjustment, but it's like, once you're on the return side, it's too late to get changing anything. And the belt just wants to fold over on itself, and at some point it just broke the melted joint in it. So Angelo procured some authentic 1.25 inch wide by 3/16 thick composite material. It's like a cotton fiber jacketing a some kind of plastic or nylon core, urethane core. And we practiced joined one of the belts yesterday, and with an 1.5 inch diameter pipe, I tried to break the joint, and it was bending the pipe.
It was just a super glue joint.
Yeah, right. CA glue on this material. It was bevel cut at a 15-degree angle on my radial arm saw, on my miter saw. So it's just a 15-degree matching miter that put some glue on the face, put it together. In a few seconds, you got a joint.
So we can show the video?
Show why there's no audio. Oops, sorry.
I think you can turn the sound on.
I do, but something's not right. I haven't tested that with the new setup.
I think it's running right there,
Yeah.
but you can't tell since there is no sound. It is quite loud. And you see the head assembly, it's got 2.5-inch wide wheels and then a 2.5-inch wide center wheel.
And where will the bowl fasten?
The end of that shaft receives a 1 inch, 8 thread per inch spindle adapter that PSI sells for people who want to convert their shopsmith, which is a 5/8 shaft, into a real lathe, you know, that with the 1 inch 8 thread. And then you just put a chuck on it. And when it's all finished, that upper headstock box, all that comes out of, all that can be seen is the spindle.
So to give credit where credit is due, I was brash enough to volunteer to build this lathe. Only I could never do what Barry's doing. This is a PhD in mechanical engineering. What?
MS.
A mechanical engineer with aeronautics background. He's skunk works here. He's spitballing some of this stuff that I would never even try. So I'm grateful that he's involved because it takes the weight off of my shoulders. I'm a simple draftsman, so I'm gonna give him the little pictures of what the thing should look like.
There you can see the, well, that's where it broke.
End of the movie.
Are you ever gonna bring it up here?
We can store it up here after
I
the
guess
fact.
it's gonna wind up probably about
He's never satisfied.
150 pounds. Mostly
That
molded.
could be the demo lathe.
It could be.
It could be the demo thing. But you have to forge your own tools, you need a foundry, you
Oh
need
my
all that
God.
stuff. Yeah.
Well, I mean, how are you
can
gonna test it out ahead of time? You're
And
gonna
we
have
can
to
only
try
make
it.
little 3-inch rice bowls.
You're gonna have to turn some stuff on it, right?
Forged in fire, they do that.
Well, Angelo, a couple of months ago, maybe 6 months ago, was talking about possibly trying to get her to stay like a day beyond the symposium and I guess come up here.
Well, I asked her if she would mind coming a day early so that we could take her down to Philly to see the museum in
Oh,
Turned Wood. And I didn't hear from her for a couple of days, and she came back and said, yeah, I'm traveling with my husband and we're going to stay 2 weeks. I said, okay. Fortunately, of those 2 weeks, 3 or 4 days are at the symposium. Carl has volunteered to pick up another 4 days, so I'm on the hook for a week. So now I've got a Japanese cookbook.
How about a dictionary?
And I'm finding that there's little translators that you can buy.
Yeah.
You can speak into it and it translates.
Google Translate.
Pardon?
Google Translate
On your phone.
Google Translate does that.
Google Translate, they say, is not as good as one of those
Oh, okay.
just
Purpose-built thing?
purpose-built translator. For,
Especially if you have an Apple II.
all I know is that they like rice.
It's gotta be the right rice.
So I'm gonna buy a rice cooker.
Better get the right kind.
Oh, okay, tell me.
All right.
I think they mainly
That's
do
it.
sticky rice.
Father to an Asian kid.
Is there anything else that somebody brought?
What's on the table
No,
there?
they have no idea how to price. That's why they have the machine.
Okay, hold on, Jack. After Matt.
Oh, they just throw it in.
Matt's gonna slug it with his wig stand.
The white people use those.
I didn't have anything to do today, so I Made a wig stand. It's
Nice,
spalted maple and cherry.
very nice.
Usually I use the same type of wood in the middle, but I didn't have any long enough to take and make the middle, so I went with a different one.
Nice job.
We made a lot of these in Georgia. A
Very
lot of
nice.
them.
Yeah, yeah.
You gonna take it over to the,
Whenever you're ready, just let you know. There's
Okay, ready. Do,
what are you gonna do with it?
so who on Zoom has something to show? Jim?
Jim does.
Oh, are they having a display?
You're on, Jim.
Are they having a display?
All right,
No, I'm gonna give it to them so they can see
Oh.
something.
Oh, okay.
today's or this month's challenge.
Ah,
Are you guys seeing this? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we see it.
This is a mock-up I did after Barbara Dill was at our Thursday mornings. And this was my mock-ups for doing off-centered parallel turnings. And the top had a little concave space in it. And I go, hey, went on Amazon and they had a little terrarium glass, I guess they called it. So I put it in upside down because it had a stem on the bottom for hanging from a ceiling or whatever. And then I turned it a little top and stuck on it. In there, I normally put a tea light. It's just fun. So the wood actually is a resting spot for the glass. So it's not glued in; it just sits there. Kind of because it's just a rough mock-up. Trying to learn that off-center turning without wrecking things. So
How tall is that, Jim?
I think 18 inches.
No, that's pretty big.
Yeah, it's long. Yeah, I think it's about that. I forgot to measure it again, and I didn't look on my Facebook page. I usually put the height there. So, and then I discovered it wasn't very stable, so I turned found a chunk piece of wood in the. Well, there's no junk wood. There's wood that's just not being used in my bin, and I turned a little base on it to make it a little more stable. So I still haven't turned the final piece on it. I got onto something else, but it was glass and wood. So
How many timbers is that on, Jim? When you said off-center turning, is it 3 or is it 2 or is it?
boy, I've done it a while. I think it was 3. I usually do 3. Although this is one of the first pieces, I may have only done 2 because it's a parallel off center. It's not a twisted. So, in other words, the off centers were on the same side of center point when you turned it, and then you moved to the other side of center point for like one concave here was turned one way and the other one was turned the other way. So, and they are twisted, I think, 90 degrees if you look closely. If you draw down through the center, the bottom one and the top one are twisted to each other 90 degrees. So Doug, I think if you were the guy that asked, I think it was 2 centers.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Is the wood all the same species? Because it has like a color shift in the photo.
Actually, it was just a junk piece of wood. I think it was pine of some kind, and then I painted it for effect. And like I said, it was the mock-up. Yeah, let me share it real quick again. Yeah, it was the middle part here where the bead is, or the ball is natural finished. I don't even know how to put a finish on it. And then I painted the concaves one way, and I painted the complex. What do you call it? What do you call the opposite? Concave, whatever the opposite side.
Convex.
Convex. Thank you. So the convexes were gray, and these were. It just happened to be what colors I had available in the shop, just for the fun of it. So it's paint, actually, believe it or not. It's not dye.
Nice.
Is it stained?
Looks like you had fun.
I did. Yeah.
Thank you, Jim.
I also learned that one of those tea lights with a button, one of those little tiny tea lights with a button battery in the bottom will last a month, burning 24/7. And the last week it's starting to be, when is it dying, you know? So it flickers more about when it gets 25% of the power down, then it starts more of a flicker. It's more than you need to know about Chinese tea lights. So.
Jack?
Well, this actually has nothing to do with a lathe or any kind of turning, except the tools turn and the pieces stay bolted to the table. And you can see it's not made out of real good wood because this is my first piece. And I'm glad I didn't use it because I had a power surge today and it knocked a hole in it. But it's made out of pressure treated lumber, so I can put it outside.
What are you making it for?
And
Bring it to the picnic.
huh?
Yeah.
Bring it to the picnic and
Yeah,
try it.
Yeah.
What are you making
I'll
it for?
try that.
What's its purpose?
But
What's it?
Angelo asked me what brought this on. I said, well, it started out as a challenge, and it's starting to catch on. People enjoy having these things in their yard. And I put bearings in the end of it, and they spin like crazy in the wind. But other than that,
So how do you make it?
these are fun to make.
CNC.
How do you make it?
I have a CNC.
Well, you don't sit there and carve it by hand.
No, I don't sit there and carve it out. It actually took about 3 hours to make as machine runtime, but it took me days to program it because of the contour configuration. The computer didn't like some of it, so I had to come up with ingenious ways of getting around those problems. But they're fun to make.
That's not one of the shark.
What's that?
That's not one of the shark CNCs, is it?
No,
Like
it's
with
it's
a
three-phase
router?
machine with a router. It's on a gantry. It's about this long.
It's the modern version of a rose.
That's the x-axis going in and out, and the y-axis goes across.
Yeah.
And the z-axis is up and down.
What bit do you have in that?
Sorry?
What bit are you using on that?
I used a 1/2-inch ball mill on the back, and I used a 1/2-inch bull mill on the front, which is just has an 1/8-inch radius on the corners. And I used two different styles of programming. One actually files the contour of the blade itself, and the other one just goes steps across in 50 thousandths increments. And you get two different kinds of finishes.
So how do you keep?
It was a learning curve.
How do you keep the two sides in the
And,
register?
the one side actually looks more appealing than the other, but it's not so lumpy.
How do you keep the two sides registered?
Center.
Just the center?
So the center.
When I have a plate that I bolted to the table of the machine itself. On that plate, I spacered out the holes in 2 1/4-inch pattern in both directions. And I screwed in those tap blocks up on the bottom side so that when I put a screw in there from the top, it won't pull out. It's trapped in there. And so what I did was I left this thing square when I bolted it to the table, and I bolt it down in 4 places, and then I just flip it over. And I register off the center of the part. And it worked out beautifully because
So
it's,
the
it locates it right on where I picked it up at.
So the bigger question for me is,
Can't hear what you're saying.
the bigger question for me is, how did you get involved with CNC work and why?
I started out as a machine operator
before they put computers on machines. And when they did, I got into that. And I went from machine operator to NC machine operator to CNC machine programmer to manufacturing engineer.
So this is something you did for
So
a
this
living?
is what I do as a hobby now.
Oh, okay. Answers my question.
Yeah.
Have you thought of putting a generator on the thing so it actually generates a little bit of
I
electricity?
can't hear a word you're saying.
Have you thought about putting some sort of generator and light on it so it generates electricity when it spins?
I thought about that, and I have been looking to do that.
Well, Barry could help.
I haven't found anything suitable yet.
Mike has the
Barry's a
lights.
little busy right now.
I was thinking, more on the terms of a bigger one for doing that.
And putting it on a 100-foot
Put it on a
post.
roof.
Yeah, yeah.
Use a bicycle, one of the little bicycle light generators.
Hey,
Like for a bicycle light generator.
Yeah, bicycle light. That'll work. It'll drive.
hey, I have a dumb question, but why did it make a hole when the power dropped out? Shouldn't it have just stopped, or why did it decide to punch a hole?
Why did I punch a hole in it?
Why did it?
No, why did it punch a hole?
It's one of those things that goes on when you put too much power into a computer. It drives it nuts, and it just does things like that.
Okay.
And when I stopped it and reran it, it was the same program. I didn't have to change the program at all.
Huh.
So it was a fluke.
So it was a power surge or something?
Yeah. So, and for those of you that make oval bowls on the lathe, this is an actual oval bowl.
Off the lathe.
And it wasn't made on the lathe.
So did you start a CNC club we're not aware of?
John.
Did you start a CNC club we're not aware of?
Well, you are now.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey, cameraman.
Oh, you know what? They're gonna kick me right out of the guild. I'm just sitting here having a good time. Here, have a seat.
I was just imagining Jack and I having a conversation 20 feet apart.
There we are. There you go. Okay. Thank you, Jack. Well, if nobody has any other business, I think that concludes the evening, and hope to see a lot of you at the open shop on Saturday.
Here, let me get you on the camera.
No. Thank you. Thank you on Zoom.
You reach out to your voice?